Did you know that taking a photo in the wrong area of an airport can get you detained and questioned for hours? Most travelers have no idea, but there are security zones in every international airport where photography is strictly prohibited, even if there are no signs posted. And security doesn't have to tell you until it's too late. That's just one of the 17 airport secrets I'm exposing today that could actually land you in serious trouble. From customs violations that carry $10,000 fines to seemingly innocent behaviors that can get you added to security watch lists. These aren't your typical travel tips. I spent 15 years working in aviation security and international travel compliance, and I'm revealing the most dangerous misconceptions that even frequent flyers don't understand about airport rules. And trust me, you'll want to watch until the end because Secret 12 involves something almost everyone does with their boarding pass that creates a massive security vulnerability. One that identity thieves are actively exploiting right now. Before we continue, if you value knowing the real rules of international travel, not just the tourist-friendly guidelines, hit that subscribe button. I share new insider information every week that could save you from major headaches, or worse. Now let's dive in. Secret 1. The transit without visa. The most dangerous airport secret that almost nobody understands is the transit without visa rule. Here's the truth. Just because you're only connecting through a country doesn't mean you can legally enter that airport. Thousands of travelers get detained every year because they misunderstand this critical rule. Here's how it works. When you book a flight with a connection, the airline will check if you need a visa for your final destination. But many airlines don't verify if you're legally allowed to transit through your connection country. They'll happily let you board. Then you'll be detained at your connecting airport and sent back at your own expense. For example, if you're flying from Mexico to China with a connection in Canada, you might think, I'm just passing through Canada. I don't need a visa. Bruh. Canada requires transit visas for citizens of over 150 countries, even if you never leave the airport. Similar rules exist for connections through the UK, US, and many European countries. What makes this especially dangerous is that the rules change constantly based on diplomatic relations. A route that was perfectly legal last month might get you detained today. And worst of all, the airline that let you board illegally faces no consequences. You bear 100% of the cost and legal troubles. To protect yourself, always check the official embassy website of any country you'll transit through. Even if you won't leave the airport, look specifically for Transit Visa Requirements, or TWOV, Transit Without Visa, rules for your citizenship. Never trust third-party websites or your airline's check-in agent on this matter. Secret 2. The baggage tag liability trap. Have you ever left an old baggage tag on your suitcase from a previous trip? This innocent habit could cost you thousands of dollars or even get you detained. Here's why. Customs officials are trained to look for destination mismatches on luggage. If you're arriving from London but have a tag from Dubai still attached, this raises an immediate red flag. Officials may suspect you're attempting to hide your true travel history to avoid stricter screening or declarations. In countries with tiered customs enforcement like Australia, New Zealand, and many Asian nations, this simple mistake can trigger a mandatory invasive inspection. Your luggage will be completely unpacked, swabbed for residues, and you could face intensive questioning about your travel history. Worse yet, if any prohibited item is found, even something legal in your home country but restricted at your destination, having those multiple baggage tags can be interpreted as evidence of intentional smuggling rather than an innocent mistake. This can transform a simple fine into a criminal matter. The solution is simple but critical. Remove all old baggage tags immediately after each trip. Keep your luggage clean of any previous destination information. If you need to track your travels, take photos of your tags instead of keeping them on your bags. Secret 3. The dangers power bank regulation. Power banks and portable chargers have become essential travel items, but most travelers don't realize they're classified as dangerous goods under international air transport regulations, and the rules around them are strictly enforced with serious consequences. Here's what most people get wrong. The critical limit for lithium battery power banks is 100 watt-hours, WH, per unit to be carried in your cabin baggage. Anything above this requires special airline approval, and banks over 160 WH are completely prohibited. The dangerous part? Most power banks list their capacity in milliamp hours, mAh. not watt hours. To convert, you need to multiply the mAh by the voltage and divide by 1000. A typical 20,000 milliamp hours power bank at 3.7 V is about 74 Wh, which is legal, but a high-capacity 50,000 milliamp hours bank would exceed the limit. If security finds an oversized power bank, best-case scenario is confiscation. Worst case, in countries like China, Japan, and South Korea, you can face fines starting at $5,000 for violating dangerous goods regulations. Some jurisdictions even have criminal penalties for repeat offenders. Even more concerning is that some counterfeit power banks claim capacities far below their actual size to evade these regulations. If you bought a suspiciously cheap high-capacity power bank online, you might unknowingly be carrying an illegal item. Always check the watt-hour rating of your power banks before travel. If it's not clearly marked, use the conversion formula or contact the manufacturer. And never pack power banks in checked luggage. This is universally prohibited and can lead to your bags being removed from the flight and you being paged for security violations. Secret 4. The Customs Declaration Language Trap. When you enter a foreign country and fill out a customs declaration form, you might think language barriers would provide some leniency if you misunderstand a question. This assumption is not only wrong, it's dangerously wrong. International customs law operates under a principle called strict liability, meaning your intent or understanding doesn't matter. If you incorrectly answer a customs question, you're legally responsible regardless of whether you understood it. This creates a serious trap for travelers. In many countries, including Japan, South Korea, and Australia, the customs forms may have subtle translation differences that change the meaning of questions. For example, some countries ask if you're carrying food, while others specify fresh food or processed food, distinctions that matter legally. The consequences can be severe. In New Zealand, an incorrect customs declaration can result in immediate fines of NZD $400, even for first-time visitors who clearly made honest mistakes. In the United States, Customs and Border Protection can seize your electronics and detain you for hours based on inconsistent declarations. To protect yourself, always ask for a form in your native language if available. If not, use translation apps to verify any questions you're uncertain about. And when in doubt, always declare items. It's better to have an item inspected and cleared than to face penalties for non-declaration. Secret 5. The Wi-Fi honeypot. Threat-free airport Wi-Fi seems like a convenient amenity, but security experts warn that it's one of the most dangerous digital environments you can connect to. What many travelers don't realize is that fake Wi-Fi networks set up by hackers have become increasingly common at major international airports. These honeypot networks often have names similar to the official airport network. Right, airport_free Wi-Fi, instead of the official airport Wi-Fi. Once you connect, everything you do online, from checking email to logging into bank accounts, can be monitored. Even more concerning, some sophisticated attacks involve cloning the official airport Wi-Fi portal. You connect to what seems like the legitimate network, complete with the correct login page, but it's actually intercepting all your data. The real danger comes from what happens after you leave the airport. Information captured from these fake networks is often used for delayed attacks, targeting your accounts weeks later when you won't connect the breach to your airport experience. In countries with less stringent privacy laws like Russia, China, and certain Middle Eastern nations, there have been documented cases of state-sponsored monitoring through airport Wi-Fi networks. This creates additional risks for business travelers carrying sensitive information. To protect yourself, avoid using airport Wi-Fi for anything sensitive. If you must connect, use a reputable VPN service, verify the network name with airport staff, and never access financial services or work accounts over these connections. Consider using your phone's mobile data instead. Even if roaming charges apply, it's cheaper than identity theft. Secret 6. The duty-free confiscation risk. Duty-free shopping seems like a great deal. Luxury goods without taxes or import duties. But there's a dangerous secret that duty-free retailers won't tell you. Your purchases can still be legally confiscated at your final destination or connecting airport. The duty-free status only applies to the country where you purchased the items. Once you enter another country, their import restrictions apply regardless of where you bought the product. This creates a perfect trap for travelers making connections. For example, if you buy liquor duty-free in Dubai while en route to Australia, that alcohol must still comply with Australia's strict import limits. If you exceed their allowance, typically 2.25 liters, customs can confiscate your purchase without compensation, even if it's sealed in a duty-free bag. Even more dangerous are connections through countries with cultural or religious restrictions. Alcohol purchased duty-free can be confiscated during connections through Saudi Arabia, Iran, and certain other nations, even if you never intended to enter that country. The most expensive version of this trap involves luxury goods like watches, jewelry, and designer items. Countries like China, Brazil, and Argentina have strict value limits on duty-free allowances. Exceed these, and you'll face significant import taxes or confiscation. To protect yourself, always research the import restrictions of your final destination before making duty-free purchases. For connecting flights, check the transit regulations of your connection countries as well, and always keep receipts in some cases. Proving you paid the appropriate price can help distinguish legitimate purchases from items you might be attempting to smuggle. Secret 7. The border control, secondary screening trigger words when interacting with border control officers. Certain words and phrases can instantly trigger what's called secondary screening, an extended, often uncomfortable security process that can delay you for hours. What's dangerous is that most travelers inadvertently use these trigger terms without realizing their impact. Immigration officers worldwide are trained to flag travelers who use ambiguous language about their visit purpose. Terms like maybe, possibly, or I might, when describing your itinerary or activities, instantly suggest unpredictability, a red flag for border security. Similarly, phrases indicating uncertainty about where you'll stay, such as, I'll figure it out when I get there, or I'm just going to explore, can turn a routine entry into an intensive investigation. Border agents are looking for concrete, specific travel plans. Perhaps most dangerous are casual remarks about work, saying you might do a little work remotely, or take a meeting while visiting on a tourist visa can trigger serious visa violation concerns. In countries like the United States, Australia, and the UK, this can result in immediate entry denial. The consequences get worse if you're flagged in immigration databases. Secondary screening notations can follow you internationally, causing repeated screenings on future trips to multiple countries due to information sharing agreements. To protect yourself, always use clear, specific language at border control. Have exact addresses for accommodations, specific dates for your itinerary, and never imply you'll be working unless you have the appropriate work visa. Prepare briefs, direct answers to common questions about your visit purpose, and avoid oversharing details unless specifically asked. Secret 8. The arrival card medical declaration risk when you fill out arrival cards for international destinations. The health declaration section seems like a minor formality. Few travelers realize that these medical questions are connected to international health surveillance systems, and answering incorrectly, even accidentally, can have serious legal consequences. Countries like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and many others treat false health declarations as major violations under their biosecurity laws. In Australia, for instance, providing false information on the incoming passenger card carries penalties up to 13,200 Australian dollars and potential criminal prosecution. The trap that catches most travelers involves ongoing medications. Many arrival cards ask if you're carrying drugs or medicine, without clearly distinguishing between illegal substances and prescription medications. Answering no when you have prescription drugs in your luggage can be treated as a false declaration. Another dangerous misunderstanding involves food items. Questions about animal products or biological materials might seem aimed at obvious items like meat, but they legally include products like protein supplements, certain vitamins, and even some cosmetics containing animal derivatives. What makes this particularly risky is that countries can retroactively enforce these declarations. If customs finds medication or restricted items in your luggage that contradicts your health declaration, the discrepancy is treated as intentional deception rather than confusion about the question. To protect yourself, always err on the side of declaring more rather than less on health forms. If you have any prescription medications, dietary supplements, or food items of any kind, declare them. While this might mean a brief additional inspection, it eliminates the risk of being accused of making a false declaration, which carries much more severe consequences. Secret 9. The hotel address verification trap. When passing through immigration, officers often ask for your accommodation details. Most travelers provide their hotel name and move on, not realizing that in many countries, immigration officers are now verifying this information in real time, and discrepancies can lead to serious problems. Countries including Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and increasingly European nations have systems where officers can immediately check if you actually have a reservation at the hotel you've named. If no reservation exists, or if the dates don't match your stated visit duration, this triggers immediate security concerns. What makes this dangerous is that many travelers book through third-party sites like Booking.com or Expedia, and sometimes these reservations don't immediately appear in the hotel's main system. Others might plan to book later or stay with friends after an initial hotel stay. The consequences can be severe. In Japan, for instance, failure to provide verifiable accommodation information can result in entry denial. In Thailand, immigration may require you to book accommodation on the spot before allowing entry, often at inflated prices through their preferred providers. Even worse, some countries use this verification as an opportunity to check for other discrepancies in your travel history. A hotel mismatch gives officers reason to conduct deeper background checks that might reveal previous visa issues or travel irregularities. To protect yourself, always have your hotel confirmation readily available, ideally printed or saved offline on your phone. For multiple destination trips, have your first few nights' accommodations confirmed and documentable. If staying with friends, some countries require a formal invitation letter or their contact information for verification. Secret 10. The currency declaration threshold. Most travelers know that large amounts of cash need to be declared when crossing borders, but few understand the complex and dangerous reality of currency declaration laws. What constitutes currency legally goes far beyond just cash, and the thresholds vary dramatically between countries. In most countries, the declaration requirement applies not just to physical cash, but also to travelers' checks, money orders, investment securities, and even prepaid debit cards. In the United States, for example, the $10,000 declaration requirement applies to the combined value of all these instruments. What's particularly dangerous is that some countries include jewelry, precious metals, and high-value collectibles in their definition of monetary instruments. Travelers with luxury watches, gold jewelry, or valuable collectibles often unwittingly violate declaration requirements. The penalties for violations are exceptionally harsh. In most jurisdictions, undeclared currency can be completely confiscated, even if the funds came from legitimate sources. In Australia, failing to declare currency over 10,000 Australian dollar can result in fines up to 11,100 Australian dollars and possible imprisonment. Even more concerning, the burden of proof is typically on the traveler to prove they weren't intentionally evading declaration requirements. Phrases like, "I didn't know," or "I forgot," are not considered valid legal defenses in most countries. To protect yourself, research the specific currency declaration thresholds for each country you'll visit. Remember that the requirement applies to what you're carrying, not what you plan to spend. Always declare amounts close to the threshold. It's better to declare unnecessarily than risk confiscation. And keep in mind that splitting currency among family members to stay under the threshold is explicitly illegal in most countries and treated as deliberate evasion. Secret 11. The photography red zones. Taking photos in airports seems harmless, and many travelers document their journeys on social media. What most don't realize is that airports worldwide have unmarked red zones, where photography can trigger immediate security responses, even arrest in some countries. These restricted photography areas often include obvious security checkpoints, but also extend to less obvious locations like airport operations areas, certain gates used for government or military flights, and even specific angles that show security camera placements or staff-only entrances. What makes this particularly dangerous is that the roles aren't standardized. In the United States, TSA checkpoints are generally photography restricted. In countries like China, India, and parts of the Middle East, these restrictions extend to much broader areas of the terminal, often without clear signage. The consequences can be severe. In the UAE and certain Asian countries, airport photography in restricted areas can be treated as a security breach under anti-terrorism laws. Your equipment can be confiscated, photos deleted, and in extreme cases, you can face detention and questioning. Even in Western countries, taking photos that capture security procedures or equipment can result in temporary detention while security reviews your devices and questions your intentions. This often causes missed flights with no compensation. To protect yourself, always assume photography is prohibited near security checkpoints, immigration areas, and anywhere showing operational aspects of the airport. If you want to take travel photos, stick to public concourses, food courts, and your gate seating area. If you're unsure, ask airport staff before taking photos, and never photograph airport staff without permission, especially security personnel. Secret 12. The boarding pass security vulnerability. Your boarding pass contains far more personal information than you realize, and sharing images of it online has become one of the most dangerous yet common travel habits. What looks like just a ticket is actually a key that can unlock your entire travel profile and potentially compromise your identity. The barcode or QR code on your boarding pass isn't just your seat assignment. It contains your full name, frequent flyer number, booking reference, and sometimes part of your passport number or ID information. Using widely available barcode scanning apps, anyone can extract this data from a photo of your boarding pass. With just your booking reference and last name, both visible on most boarding passes, someone can access your flight reservation on the airline's website. This often reveals your email address, partial credit card information, and sometimes your entire travel itinerary, including future flights. For frequent flyers, the exposed frequent flyer number can be used for social engineering attacks to gain access to your loyalty account, where your stored payment methods and more comprehensive personal information are accessible. What makes this particularly dangerous is that the security risk doesn't end when your flight does. Posted boarding passes can be used months later to piece together your travel patterns, which is valuable information for sophisticated social engineering attacks. To protect yourself, never post photos of your boarding pass online, even after your flight. Shred physical boarding passes before discarding them. If you need to share your travel details with friends or family, send your flight number and time separately from any booking references or barcodes, and regularly monitor your frequent flyer accounts for unauthorized activity. Secret 13. The secure flight data danger. When booking flights, particularly to the United States, airlines collect what's called secure flight data, including your full name, date of birth, and gender. Most travelers assume this information stays with the airline, but it actually feeds into international security databases with concerning privacy implications. This passenger data is shared through systems like the Advanced Passenger Information System, APIS, and Passenger Name Record, PNR, databases. These systems allow countries to pre-screen travelers before they board planes. The danger lies in the inconsistent international standards for how this information is used, stored, and shared. In some countries, your travel history derived from this data can be accessed by law enforcement without warrants, used for immigration profiling, or even shared with commercial entities. More concerning is that errors in this data can create lasting problems. If your name is similar to someone on a security watch list, or if your information is incorrectly entered, you can face unexplained travel restrictions across multiple countries due to the interconnected nature of these systems. What makes this particularly risky is that most travelers have no way to view what information is stored about them or correct errors. Unlike credit reports, these security databases offer limited transparency or recourse. To protect yourself, always book flights using your exact legal name as it appears on your ID or passport. No nicknames or abbreviations. Consistently use the same form of your name for all international travel. If you repeatedly face additional screening, consider applying for redress programs like the DHS TRIP in the United States, which can help resolve misidentification issues. Secret 14. The baggage handler access reality. When you check luggage, you're unwittingly granting access to your personal belongings to dozens of individuals with varying levels of security clearance. What most travelers don't realize is that checked baggage moves through a surprisingly accessible system with significant security vulnerabilities. Despite airport security feet are focused on passengers, there's a little-known reality in aviation security. Baggage handlers and other ground crew often undergo less rigorous security screening than passengers. In many airports worldwide, staff access points have more limited security measures than passenger checkpoints. This creates a serious vulnerability. While passenger luggage is screened for weapons and explosives, it's rarely protected against theft or privacy invasion. In certain countries, baggage handlers have been documented systematically targeting high-value items from luggage with brand markers suggesting valuable contents. What makes this particularly dangerous is that accountability is minimal. If items go missing, the complex chain of custody makes it nearly impossible to determine where the breach occurred. Claim systems are designed to minimize airline liability, typically offering depreciated value compensation with high burden of proof requirements. Even more concerning are privacy implications. Personal documents, medication information, and other sensitive items in your luggage can be accessed by numerous individuals throughout the handling process, creating identity theft risks. To protect yourself, never pack valuables, important documents, or irreplaceable items in checked luggage. Use TSA-approved locks, but understand their limitations. They only deter casual theft. Consider using luggage without obvious luxury branding that might target you for theft. And maintain detailed inventory lists with photos of packed items before checking bags on high-risk routes known for baggage theft issues. Secret 15. The random selection system. When you're selected for random, additional security screening at airports, there's often nothing random about it. Most travelers don't realize that these selections are frequently based on sophisticated profiling algorithms and behavioral analysis systems that operate with little transparency or oversight. Modern airports, especially in North America, Europe, and parts of Asia, use what's called risk-based security systems. These systems assign risk scores to passengers based on dozens of factors, including booking patterns, travel history, payment methods, and even real-time behavior in the terminal. What makes this dangerous is that these systems frequently contain inherent biases that disproportionately flag certain ethnicities, nationalities, or travel patterns without clear justification. More concerning, being flagged repeatedly can create a feedback loop in the system, increasing your chances of future random selections. Even more troubling, some countries use these security screenings as intelligence gathering opportunities. Selected passengers' electronic devices may receive more scrutiny. Documents may be photographed, and questioning may be designed to gather information beyond security concerns. The real risk emerges when these security flags follow you internationally. Being repeatedly selected in one country can trigger alerts in partner nations due to security information sharing agreements, creating a pattern of harassment that's difficult to break. To protect yourself, maintain consistent travel behaviors when possible. Book directly with airlines rather than through third parties. Arrive at the airport with ample time to avoid appearing rushed or anxious. And if you face repeated random selections, consider applying for trusted traveler programs like Global Entry, US, AEO, the U, or their equivalents, which can sometimes override these selection algorithms. Secret 16. The sterile area legal status. When you pass through security into what airports call the sterile area, the secure side of the terminal, you're entering a zone with unique legal status that most travelers completely misunderstand. This misunderstanding creates serious risks for otherwise law-abiding travelers. In many jurisdictions, especially the United States, airport sterile areas have special legal designations that suspend certain rights and protections you would normally have in public spaces. Consent to search, for example, is implied simply by entering these areas. Authorities can search your belongings without specific cause. What's particularly dangerous is that different countries define prohibited items very differently, and keeping track of these variations is nearly impossible for regular travelers. Items that are perfectly legal in your home country, certain self-defense tools, medications, or even food products, may be strictly prohibited in airport sterile areas elsewhere. Even more concerning is that in many countries, security officials in these areas have enhanced detention powers. They can hold you for questioning with lower legal thresholds than would be required outside the airport. In some nations, refusing to answer questions in these areas is itself grounds for detention. The legal risks extend to speech as well. Comments or jokes about security that would be protected speech elsewhere can be treated as security threats in sterile areas, resulting in removal, fines, or even arrest. This has happened to numerous travelers who made casual remarks that were overheard by security personnel. To protect yourself, treat the sterile area as a distinct legal jurisdiction with stricter rules than the outside world. Avoid making any comments about security, even in jest. Research prohibited items for each country you'll visit, as these lists change frequently, and maintain a cooperative demeanor with security personnel, as confrontational behavior in sterile areas carries much higher risks than in normal public spaces. Secret 17. The biometric data collection reality. The most concerning airport secret of all may be what happens to your biometric data after it's collected. Facial recognition, fingerprinting, and other biometric systems are now standard in many international airports. But few travelers understand how this data is stored, shared, or used after collection. What most people don't realize is that biometric data collected for convenience and security at airports is increasingly being shared between countries through agreements like the Five Eyes Alliance. US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and similar arrangements worldwide. Your face scan from entering Japan might later be accessible to authorities in the United States or European Union. The dangerous part is the lack of transparency about data retention periods and usage limitations. While some countries have clear privacy laws governing this data, many operate in legal gray areas where biometric information can be retained indefinitely and used for purposes beyond border security. Even more concerning is the growing integration of airport biometric systems with law enforcement and intelligence databases. In some jurisdictions, your airport facial scan might be compared against criminal watch lists without any reasonable suspicion or warrant, creating potential false matches and unwarranted scrutiny. What makes this particularly risky for travelers is the almost complete absence of consent mechanisms. At many borders, refusing biometric collection can result in entry denial. There's rarely a meaningful way to opt out if you wish to travel internationally. To protect yourself, research the biometric requirements for countries you plan to visit. Where possible, use programs like Global Entry that at least provide some privacy disclosures about data usage. For countries with concerning privacy records, consider minimizing your travel there if biometric collection is a personal concern. And stay informed about biometric data arrangements between countries, as these agreements frequently change without public notice. Now you understand why these 17 airport secrets could get you in serious trouble. While some might seem paranoid, they represent real risks that affect thousands of travelers every year. By understanding these hidden dangers, you can protect yourself from unnecessary complications, privacy invasions, and even legal issues during international travel. If you found this information valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more insider travel knowledge that the industry doesn't want you to know. And share this video with anyone you know who travels internationally. It might save them from a terrible experience. What's your most concerning airport experience? Share it in the comments below, and I'll try to explain what might have been happening behind the scenes. Thanks for watching and safe travels.